Hello, my name is Nuril Anisani Swanto. I'm a general physician with a degree in disaster science for master, and I have been working in community-based clinics and organizations in the past 7 years or so. So let's talk about disaster management cycle. For my past experiences, it has shown me that us general physicians should take place amongst the stakeholders in terms of disaster management. And why is that? Because health is amongst other sectors that need to be attention for in every single phase of disaster management cycle. The stakeholders in disaster management cycle usually consist of government and non-government. And the non-government part usually consists of civil society and business managers or owners. As general physicians are amongst the civil society, and that's why we have to be in every aspect of the management cycle. Amongst all the references to how to understand disaster management cycle, we have Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, for example. And in that framework, it is thoroughly highlighted that health resilience is something that we have to live in. Health resilience means health workers' resilience. So physicians amongst all the health workers around the world need to be in this part of the resilience. There are 4 phases in the disaster management cycle. And in order to make it easier for us to remember, let's remember it by 4 R's. What are the 4 R's? The first R is readiness or preparedness. The second R is risk reduction or mitigation. The third R is response or the emergency phase during the disaster. And the fourth R is the rehabilitation and recovery phase. So readiness or preparedness are about having plans or preparations for us to understand that we are ready in case of any emergency that might happen in the future. For example, this could be water and food supplies for emergency, screening for volunteers that need to be mobilized during or after the disaster, and for us health physicians, we could train ourselves better in order to understand how we could react and give services during any disaster. For instance, I have been trained in infant and young child feeding in emergencies, and that training was really useful for me when I got myself into voluntary response during a flood in my city. In this phase, we could do anything to minimize the impacts of any disaster that might happen in that area. For example, in an area that is prone to flood, we could build the clinics higher, and we could keep all the important equipments in the second floor, and we can build a ramp in order to promote accessibility during the disaster when it happens. In this phase, when actually the disaster is happening, we could roll out all the preparations or the plans that were made during the readiness phase. For example, we could roll out all the foods and water supplies and distribute them for those who need it. And we could activate and mobilize the volunteers. And for us health physicians, we could actually give medical services during this emergency phase. This phase happens after the disaster has been managed well in the previous phase. For example, we could go to the students in all the schools that are around the disaster area, and we could train them to be more aware of the disaster and how we could prevent the same impacts from happening to them again. In Indonesia, we call these students little doctors or dokter kecil, and these students usually get trained to be more educational, and later in turn they will educate their friends and their peers so that they could be more aware of the disaster and the health impacts on how the disaster could affect them. It is important for us health physicians to understand our roles and make efforts in every phase of the disaster management cycle. Every single effort matters, and that could help the community to understand a better understanding on how to manage a disaster. I hope this has been really helpful for you, and see you!